As they staggered past the blasted ruins of Thurkara, Yashana pointed suddenly at the sky. "What is that?" A great shape was winging its way towards them. It had the appearance of a butterfly, but a butterfly with wings so huge they blotted out the sun. "Can it be some creature of Baello's left behind?" she speculated. "Hardly likely," he replied. "This has the appearance of a monster conjured by a human sorcerer." "Theleb Ka'ana." "He has surpassed himself," Elric said wryly. "I did not think him capable. It is his vengeance on us, Elric. And that seems reasonable. But I am weak, Yashana, and Stormbringer needs souls if it is to replenish my strength." He turned a calculating eye on the warriors behind him, who were gaping up at the creature as it came nearer. Now they could see it had a man's body, covered with hairs or feathers hued like a peacock's. The air whistled as it descended, its 50-foot wings dwarfing the 7 feet of head and body. From its head grew 2 curling horns, and its arms terminated in long talons. "We are doomed, Elric!" cried Yashana. She saw that the warriors were fleeing, and she cried after them to come back. Elric stood there, passively, knowing that alone he could not defeat the butterfly creature. "Best go with them, Yashana," he murmured. "I think it will be satisfied with me." "No!" He ignored her and stepped towards the creature as it landed and began to glide over the ground in his direction. He drew a quiescent Stormbringer, which felt heavy in his hand. A little strength flowed into him, but not enough. His only hope was to strike a good blow at the creature's vitals and draw some of its life force into himself. The creature's voice shrilled at him, and a strange, insane face twisted as he approached. Elric realized that this was no true supernatural denizen of the netherworlds, but a once human creature warped by Theleb Ka'ana's sorcery. At least it was mortal, and he had only physical strength to contend with. In better condition it would have been easy for him, but now... The wings beat at the air as the taloned hands grasped at him. He took Stormbringer in both hands and swung the rune blade at the thing's neck. Swiftly the wings folded in to protect its neck, and Stormbringer became entangled in the strange, sticky flesh. A talon caught Elric's arm, ripping it to the bone. He yelled in pain and yanked the sword from the enfolding wing. He tried to steady himself for another blow, but the monster grabbed his wounded arm, and he began drawing it towards its now lowered head and the horns that curled from it. He struggled, hacking at the thing's arms with the extra strength that came from the threat of death. Then he heard a cry from behind him and saw a figure from the corner of his eye, a figure that leapt forward with 2 blades gleaming in either hand. The swords slashed at the talons, and with a shriek the creature turned on Elric's would-be rescuer. It was Moonglum. Elric fell backwards, breathing hard as he watched his little red-headed friend engage the monster. But Moonglum would not survive for long unless aided. Elric racked his brain for some spell that would help, but he was too weak, even if he could think of one, to raise the energy necessary to summon supernatural help. And then it came to him. Yashana. She was not as exhausted as he, but could she do it? He turned as the air moaned to the beating of the creature's wings. Moonglum was only just managing to hold it off, his 2 swords flashing rapidly as he parried every effort to grasp him. "Yashana," croaked the albino. She came up to him and placed a hand on his. "We could leave, Elric. Perhaps hide from that thing." "No, I must help Moonglum. Listen, you realize how desperate our position is, do you not? Then keep that in mind while you recite this rune with me. Perhaps together we may succeed. There are many kinds of lizards in these parts, are there not?" "Aye, many." "Then this is what you must say, and remember that we shall and remember that we shall all perish by Thalab Ka'ana's servant if you are not successful. In the half-worlds, where dwelt the master types of all creatures other than man, an entity stirred, hearing its name. The entity was called Ha-Shasta, and it was scaly and cold, with no true intellect, such as men and gods possessed, but an awareness which served it as well, if not better. It was brother, on this plane, to such entities as Mirkla, Lord of the Cats, Rufdrak, Lord of the Dogs, Nurua, Lord of the Cattle, and many, many others. This was Ha-Shastak, Lord of the Lizards. It did not really hear words in the exact sense, but it heard rhythms which meant much to it, even though it did not know why. The rhythms were being repeated over and over again, but seemed too faint to be worth much attention. It stirred and yawned, but did nothing. Ha-Shastak, Lord of Lizards, your children were fathers of men. Ha-Shastak, Prince of Reptiles, come aid a grandchild now. Ha-Shastak, Father of Scales, cold-blooded bringer of life. It was a bizarre scene, with Elric and Yashana desperately chanting the rune over and over again as Moonglum fought on, slowly losing strength. Ha-Shastak quivered and became more curious. The rhythms were no stronger, yet they seemed more insistent. He would travel, he decided, to that place where those he watched over dwelt. He knew that if he answered the rhythms, he would not have to obey whatever source they had. He was not, of course, aware that such decisions had been implanted into him in a far distant age, the time before the creation of Earth, when the Lords of Law and Chaos, then inhabitants of a single realm and known by another name, had watched over the forming of things and laid down the manner and logic in which things should behave, following their great edict from the voice of the cosmic balance, the voice which had never spoken since. Ha-Shastak betook himself, a little slothfully, to earth. Elric and Yashana were still chanting hoarsely as Ha-Shastak made his sudden appearance. He had the look of a huge iguana, and his eyes were many-coloured, many-faceted jewels, his scales seeming of gold, silver, and other rich metals. A slightly hazy outline surrounded him, as if he had brought part of his own environment with him. Yashana gasped, and Elric breathed a deep sigh. As a child he learned the languages of all animal masters, and now he must recall the simple language of the lizard master, Ha-Shastak. His need fired his brain, and the words came suddenly. Ha-Shastak, he said, pointing at the butterfly creature. Mokik, Ankkur. The lizard lord turned its jewelled eyes on the creature, and its great tongue suddenly shot out towards it, curling around the monster. It shrilled in terror as it was drawn towards the lizard lord's great maw. Legs and arms kicked as the mouth closed on it. Several gulps, and Ha-Shastak had swallowed Thalab Ka'ana's prize creation. Then it turned its head uncertainly about it for a few moments, and vanished. Pain began to throb now through Elric's torn arm as Moonglum staggered towards him, grinning in relief. "I followed behind you at a distance as you requested," he said, "since you suspected treachery from Thalab Ka'ana. But then I spied the sorcerer coming this way and followed him to a cave in yonder hills." He pointed. "But when the deceased," he laughed shakily, "emerged from the cave, I decided that it would be best to chase that, for I had the feeling it was going in your direction." "Well, I'm glad you were so astute," Elric said. "It was your doing, really," Moonglum replied, "for if you hadn't anticipated treachery from Thalab Ka'ana, I might not have been here at the right moment." Moonglum suddenly sank into the grass, leaned back, grinned, and fainted. Elric felt very dazed himself. "I do not think we need fear anything more from your sorcerer just yet, Yashana," he said. "Let us rest here and refresh ourselves. Perhaps then your cowardly soldiers will have returned, and we can send them to a village to get us some horses." They stretched out on the grass and, lying in each other's arms, went to sleep. Elric was astonished to wake in a bed, a soft bed. He opened his eyes and saw Yashana and Moonglum smiling down at him. "Well, how long have I been here?" "More than 2 days. You did not wake when the horses came, so we had the warriors construct a stretcher to bear you to Dakos. You are in my palace." Elric cautiously moved his stiff, bandaged arm. It was still painful. "Are my belongings still at the inn?" "Perhaps, if they have not been stolen. Why?" "I have a pouch of herbs there, which will heal this arm quickly, and also supply me with a little strength, which I need badly." "I will go and see if they are still there," Moonglum said, and walked from the chamber. Yashana stroked Elric's milk-white hair. "I have much to thank you for, Wolf," she said. "You have saved my kingdom, perhaps all the young kingdoms. In my eyes, you were redeemed for my brother's death." "Oh, I thank you, madam," said Elric, with a mocking tone. She laughed. "You are still a Melnibonéan." "Still that, I. A strange mixture, however. Sensitive and cruel. Sardonic and loyal to your little friend, Moonglum. I look forward to knowing you better, my lord. As to that, I am not sure if you will have the opportunity." She gave him a hard look. "Why?" "Your resume of my character was incomplete, Queen Yashana. You should have added, careless of the world and yet vengeful. I wish to be revenged on your pet wizard." "But he is spent, surely. You said so yourself." "I am, as you remarked, still a Melnibonéan. My arrogant blood calls vengeance on an upstart." "Forget Theleb Ka'ana. I will have him hunted by my white leopards. Even his sorcery will not win against such savages as they are." "Forget him? Oh no." Elric, I will give you my kingdom, declare you ruler of Jarkor, if you will let me be your consort." He reached out and stroked her bare arm with his good hand. "You are unrealistic, Queen. To take such action would bring wholesale rebellion in your land. To your folk I am still the traitor of Imrir." "Not now. Now you are the hero of Jarkor." "Well, how so? Did they not know of their peril?" "They did not know of their peril, and thus will feel no gratitude. It were best that I settled my debt with your wizard and went on my way. The streets must already be full of rumours that you have taken your brother's murderer to your bed. Your popularity with your subjects must be at its lowest, madam." "I do not care." "You will if your nobles lead the square in insurrection and crucify you naked in the city square." "You are familiar with our customs." "We Melnibonéans are a learned folk, Queen." "Well versed in all the arts?" "All of them." Again he felt his blood race as she rose and barred the door. At that moment he felt no need for the herbs which Moonglum had gone to find. When he tiptoed from the room that night, he found Moonglum waiting patiently in the antechamber. Moonglum proffered the pouch with a wink, but Elric's mood was not light. He took bunches of herbs from the pouch and selected what he needed. Moonglum grimaced as he watched Elric chew and swallow the stuff. Then together they stole from the palace. Armed with Stormbringer and mounted, Elric rode slightly behind his friend as Moonglum led the way towards the hills beyond Darkos. "If I know the sorcerers of Pantang," murmured the albino, "then Theleb Ka'ana will be more exhausted than was I. With luck we will come upon him sleeping." "I shall wait outside the cave in that case," said Moonglum, for he now had some experience of Elric's vengeance-taking and did not relish watching Theleb Ka'ana's slow death. They galloped speedily until the hills were reached, and Moonglum showed Elric the cave mouth. Leaving his horse, the albino went soft-footed into the cave, his rune sword ready. Moonglum waited nervously for Thaleb Kana's first shrieks, but none came. He waited until dawn began to bring the first faint light, and then Elric, face frozen with anger, emerged from the cave. Savagely he grasped his horse's reins and swung himself into the saddle. "Are you satisfied?" Moonglum asked tentatively. "Satisfied? No. The dog has vanished." "Gone? But—" "He was more cunning than I thought. There are several caves, and I sought him in all of them. In the furthest I discovered traces of sorceress runes on the walls and floor. He has transported himself somewhere, and I could not discover where, in spite of deciphering most of the runes. Perhaps he went to Pantang. Then our quest has been futile. Let us return to Dakos and enjoy a little more of Yashana's hospitality." "No, we go to Pantang." "But Elric, Thaleb Ka'ana's brother sorcerers dwell there in strength, and Jagrin Leon, the theocrat, forbids visitors." "No matter. I wish to finish my business with Thaleb Ka'ana." "But you have no proof that he is there." "No matter." And then Elric was spurring his horse away, riding like a man possessed or fleeing from dreadful peril. Perhaps he was both possessed and fleeing. Moonglum did not follow at once, but thoughtfully watched his friend gallop off. Not normally introspective, he wondered if Yashana had perhaps affected the albino more strongly than he would have wished. He did not think that vengeance on Thaleb Ka'ana was Elric's prime desire in refusing to return to Dakos. Then he shrugged and clapped his heels to his steed's flanks, racing to catch up with Elric as the cold dawn rose, wondering if they would continue towards Pantang once Dakos was far off behind. But Elric's head contained no thoughts, only emotions flooded him, emotion he did not wish to analyse. His white hair streaming behind him, his dead white handsome face set, his slender hands tightly clutching the stallion's reins, he rode, and only his strange crimson eyes reflected the misery and conflict within him. In Dakos that morning, other eyes held misery, but not for long. Yashana was a pragmatic queen.